I made Angry Birds into Battle Cats. Angry Birds is a very fun game, and despite being literally forgotten in 2025, I'm sure that there are still people here who play this game. So, I want to ask you all a question. How many collabs do you think Rovio did with other games? Honestly, I don't know. So let me give you a moment to guess while I search it up. Just a moment. And the answer is about 10. Funny to think that a game where you fling birds at wooden structures can have so many collabs. As for 2025, it has over 4 billion downloads, which is not bad for a game that is older than I am. Although in 2025 the era of Angry Birds is essentially over, I figured that it would be a fun time combining this classic to perhaps my favorite game. Here's a quick rundown on how the game works. You have yourself a round bird, and you're supposed to use a slingshot to throw the bird on wood, ice, glass, or stone structures. Some birds have a type advantage against... who am I kidding? They are only good against that material and absolutely terrible at others. But Battlecats does not have materials, but what it does have are enemy traits. So it is decently logical to do a collab between Battlecats and Rovio. But we can't really do a slingshot in an actual game, as it will essentially just be a single use Uber all the time. But when the unit is typically flying, do you know what comes to mind? That's right, rebound units. Units like Yukimura, Bahamut, and enemies like Brolo. What do all of them have in common? They are all flying and all rebound units. So sit back, take it slow, and let's make some Angry Birds into Battle Cats. Before we get to the units, what is a rebound unit? A rebound unit is a unit that has no time between attacks and is balanced through their extremely long backswing animation. But they can instantly attack again when knocked back, through damage or ability. Most of them have high knockback counts to ensure they can burst damage, and typically you want to set them up to get as much damage as possible. So let's get into it, starting with the leader, Red himself. I got his animations working after a while, and his attack animation is actually his ability. If y'all have not played Angry Birds 2 yet, Red can send a shockwave that pushes objects away from him. And this actually works the best against Red enemies. Yeah, ironically he targets the trait that is literally him, but Red enemies typically have low range and are very aggressive, and this is the same for relic enemies. Thus, Royal Guard is extremely useful against them. Red is actually specially built to do as much damage as possible. He has the ability to knock back red enemies, and his knockback time and distance is just barely enough so that he can damage it on his second hit. He has a two-part multi-hit. The first hit is an area attack that knocks back any red and relic enemies, and his second hit is a single target attack, which does very good damage. He also has the ability of strong against reds and relics, making his damage and health against them so much more impressive. Red also has a lot of immunities, including wave, freeze, and slow immune, along with curse immune to counter relics. While he does have a short range of 350, he can consistently keep enemies back with his knockback. Good damage, amazing counters to his traits, and amazing cooldown and price. An absolute powerhouse in Uncanny Legends. However, being an Angry Birds collab unit, he has terrible bulk, allowing him to take 10k of damage before getting knocked back, or 20k or 15k I believe for reds and relics, with about 5 knockback counts, which is not bad for a rusher unit, as most rushers like Bahamut only has like 5 to 6k bulk. but units like Bahamut and Yukimura typically have twice the speed of Red, and typically more damage. With Bahamut, Baja Blast and Yukimura's massive damage, with almost similar cooldowns by the way. While rushers like Bahamut are typically used for short-term damage, Red goes for a safer, more tanky playstyle, so you don't need to pull your hair out when he ends up feeding, as he typically won't do that. Here are Red's stats shown on the screen. And as you can see, his damage is actually pretty impressive for his target trait. However, do know that Red's main damage comes from his second hit, which is single target by the way, just to point out. So you don't want him on stages where it just spams peons. Although his pushback attack can also clear weaker peons for him to land a hit. And I actually forgot he targets trailers, but trailers is typically not one you want to target as a melee rusher, as enemies like Aros, Master 8 and Kamel are typically threats that Red is unable to reach. So he's only good at melee trailers enemies like Crazed Cat I guess. Not a bad mover, but not what you want to get early game. Just stick with Awakened Bahamut. Speaking of Awakened Bahamut, let's get to a unit that is more like Bahamut as a rusher. This is the Speed Demon, Chuck. In Angry Birds, he has a tight advantage against wooden objects. His ability is Super Speed, allowing him to reach high speeds when activating an ability. I could give him Haste, but Haste, ability that increases units' movement speed, is typically not ideal as it can allow units to rush into danger. Also, you can quite literally steal the haste from Chuck, which is kind of funny. Anyways, you can use his high speed to allow him to do an amazing skill called Clip It. Clipping. Clipping. First try. Chuck is a rebound rusher with a lot to offer. So you know Yukimura, right? Chuck is extremely similar to him, as Chuck does have higher HP but lower damage. So I believe that he's actually similar to Bullet Train, or perhaps a fusion of them. Well, go watch that video, it's fire. Chuck has 3 target traits: Floating, Relic, and Angel. Obviously no one cares about his floating niche, well, as Fishman exists. But there are not many Relic and Angel rushers in the game. At least I don't remember. And Deepsea confirmed that Zolo the Relic Doge, Zerzio the Relic Ori, Zori the Neandam, and Zamel the Relic Banban. What are all these responses? Hey, maybe a Relic Ori and Relic Neandam is fire. Oh wait, we have that Relic Neandam already. I guess if you make it this far, comment down any Relic rushers, as I have no clue about any of them. Chuck has one good stat that he's good at, and that is speed, which is literally his ability. Chuck has the highest speed in the game, a whopping 145 speed, demolishing the Battle Cat's Sonic speed of 95, which I didn't expect when making my Sonic collab, and blowing Bullet Train's 75 speed far into the stratosphere. Unfortunately, Chuck has quite literally one of the worst spots in the game. He has a high knockback count of 20 and a low health of 35k, meaning he will only take about 1.5k damage before staggering back. So essentially just create a cat version of Poppington. His damage potential is not bad, as you can essentially burst 500,000 damage with a single bird, which is not bad. It's about half as Bahamut with Baja Blast, but he has an ability, which is massive damage, allowing him to do triple damage to relics, and quad damage to floatings and angels. With half the price of Bahamut and potentially dealing double of that to his target trait is actually quite nuts. Just take note that his terrible bulk usually cannot let him do all 20 knockbacks. One last ability he has is dodge. He has a 35% chance to dodge his target trait for 2 seconds, and as a burst unit, This is not a form of defense, just an ability to ensure he hits his target. Otherwise, he can get KB stunned without dealing any damage. And there goes your $2,000. Hopefully that doesn't cause a loss. You would think that his stats would just be half of Bahamut, but it's actually a different case. He's a very aggressive 150 range, and he can be very tricky to use, making him unsuitable for low-level players. His damage is also not that good, especially on mixed trade stages. His single target and low health can easily cause him to feed. But if you want something that can do some area attack, think less. Enter one of the best buds in the game, Bomb. And if you don't know what he does, that's literally his name. So his ability is an explosion, allowing him to do damaging wave around him. He's effective against stone, well, although the game doesn't say it. Bomb has many target traits for being such a cheap unit. He is one of the only Aku rushers, which makes him very rare, and has a high speed and a very cheap price, which makes him very good for cash tight stages. He's decently fast and does decently good damage with area attacks, and he's also decently tanky with 60k health and 3 knockback counts. Bomb has good damage, doing 2000 damage on the first hit, which is terrible for a unit, but he has a chance to break Aku shields on that hit. Single target though. He does 31k damage on his second hit, which is greatly increased from his massive damage against Blacks, Akus, and Relics, which makes him do 90k damage to Akus and Relics. However, there are some problems regarding Bomb. Firstly, his first hit is single target. Despite his decent chance for his cheap price, you should mostly use him against single bosses. He targets Akus but is a wave and search heavy trait, meaning that you should be careful when using him, especially against Akus like Cory. He's also quite slow, making him not really useful against aggressive enemies. Unlike Truck, he has a decent range of 300, and he has slower speed, promoting a less aggressive gameplay, which is good for lower skilled players. Lastly, he has the ability to crit on his second hit. This does not make him good against metals, but it's actually just a damage amplifier. Nah, it actually helps, as metals are mostly melee, but you typically need to gamble for that 5% chance. Not promoting gambling though. So don't do it against metals. Instead, you could just use Handcat that are re-added into the game. Go watch that if the video is very interested. So let's go into his stats. Here are Bomb's stats. His stats are actually pretty bad if used as a generalist, but since Akus and Relics are late game traits, he can help greatly as a rusher. Although he has the slowest wind-up damage out of most rushers, but if you want a quick startup animation and explosive fun, Matilda is another alternative. As she uses an explosive egg. Although she did exist in the form of Handcat in the Forgotten Units video, that's the exposed version of her. Matilda on the other hand does not care about following this pack's trend. She has a high knockback count of 1 knockback. I have no idea why I'm making it so high. And she also has 15k HP. That is so much lower compared to Bahamut. But she doesn't really care about that stat. She has ability allowing her to slow and knock back 3 traits. This is absolutely terrible as Angels and Aliens are filled with backliners, but she does have one good stat, which is her damage. So she's very similar to Isaac Newton. When it first came out, I went to the wiki to check how good he is, and then I saw the ability and thought, okay, slow against red and floating, this should be a meh unit. And then I see videos of people using him to absolutely clap Crown UL, so I checked his stats again, and found out that he has literally unbalanced DPS. Because of our 4k DPS rating till 900 range, it's kind of insane. So she can do decent at controlling her target traits, but she mainly strives in the damage department. And the procs are more of a cherry on top. It's more similar to a unit like Balrog, where the goal is to go in, hit a few attacks, and dead. For Matilda, she has low survivability and long recharge, so giving her high damage is just fair. And I kind of went overboard with it, as she has a DPS of nearly 100k at level 30, which is just about a double of Pharaoh's DPS at level 40. But you do need to give her a clean pass so she can target the main threat. She does have a bit of Omni Strike, but that should not be something. She also has a longer recharge than Red Chuck and Bomb. And being more expensive, making her very punishing to lose if used poorly. Her health and speed are also very low, making her not possible to be used on stages with aggressive pushers like Arost, as she can be shredded in an instant. But you can use her to create a pocket with the Thunderbolt Freeze Cannon, and her stats show her terrible health does cause some issues. Even at level 50, she only has 23k HP, which is just about the same as a Max Manic Eraser, who has 24k HP. But her damage is incredibly high, at a massive 350k damage with 150k DPS, so you don't need to worry about Misty Syndrome, as that only happens with insanely tanky enemies. Mainly Old Horn, but that's it. Wait, what? Matilda is too hard for you, as she has terrible health? Well, fear not, as the biggest bird has arrived. Terrence, who is quite literally the strongest bird. Terrence needs no ability, as all he needs is his inertia. He's used more of a battering ram to plow through everything, making him S tier on many lists. He is absolutely S tier in Battle Cats. Terrence is another rusher that completely ignores all trends in this pack. I'm looking at you, Dasley. Other birds are rushers that do some damage and then leaves, but he won't do that at all. In fact, he has a slow speed and a very long time between attacks. He has about 650k health and 75k damage, which translates to a million HP and 120k damage at level 50. However, his DPS is actually really terrible. It's only like 2k at level 50, which is worse than some of the worst snipers in the game. And typically melee units have higher DPS of about 10k plus, but the main point is health. At level 30, he has 3.75 million HP, making him a wall compared to anything else. While he is quite expensive, you can use him against his targeted traits, and he's just gonna stay there blocking everything that comes his way. He has a short 100 range, making him easily able to wall off everything while protecting important units. This is especially useful during boss stages, where you can just let him run into the boss, deal damage, and wall off for some breathing room. And since he essentially has every immunity in the game, and one knockback count, nothing will get past him at all. Do you know what is the best part? He has a quick recharge of 150 seconds. So if you have the cash to spare, you can just send millions of health points to a single enemy, causing them to stay in place while you rain chaos upon them. I'm looking at you again, Dasley. Another point of interest is his shockwave. It literally does nothing. It's very simple to allow units to mainly show an animation without delivering damage by setting their direction to 0 instead of 1, which damages enemies, or -1 that damages friendly units. And that is some Battlecat's ultimate tricks that you will rarely learn. And that is also how you can make support units. But let's not get to that too much. Instead, focusing on Terrance's actual impact. While Terrance is effective at blocking most enemies, he's not really ideal on cash-tight stages like most zombie stages. He's also not immune to toxic, and thus is unviable on these stages. And the main drawback that Terrance has is the ability to defend himself. While he does have some damage, you can't really get enemies off of him. So he is nothing more than a chunky meat bag that sits there to defend other important units. Just be careful of LD enemies that can potentially use him as a stepping stone to snipe your other units. So bring him only on cash plenty stages, without piercing all toxic enemies. You can essentially create a wall that nothing can get past. This is especially true in Uncanny Legends, where relics and Akus are extremely plenty, and trailers are very aggressive. Look at his stats. Initially his damage was intended to be 1,000,000, but that's way too much, so I removed the 0 from it. While it removes his main use as a battering ram, but I believe that his health does give him enough credit. Overall, this pack allows some Russian units that can really put the pressure on your enemies. You have decently sustainable ones like Red, and some units that do a few hits and leave like Matilda. And then you end off with the legend rare Terrance, the biggest bird, ensuring that most enemies never get to your attackers. This pack is especially great in mid-game where relics are abundant, as all units are immune to curse and target relics. Well, hello there again. Looks like you're the amazing person that I always knew would watch until the end. What are your ideas on this pack? And should Ponos do a collab with Rovio? Let's discuss in the comments. We are so close to 200 subscribers, and it is such a great achievement. It is amazing seeing how far we came. And remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any uploads. It takes a very long time to do such projects, and I hope this video can reach out to more people and make Battlecat's unit projects a trend on YouTube. So help us out, leave a like and comment down below I am a real one, to mark yourself as one of those rare adventurers that made it to the end. Once again, this pack will be posted on the download link on this playlist, along with my other creations from the list. So go in there, grab a pack you like and enjoy yourself. Once again, comment down what projects you want me to make. Just keep things civil down there and don't argue over trivial matters. Once again, thank you for the support. And on this new and uncharted area. And lastly, tune in for the next one. And we will see you again next video. Take care of yourself and goodbye. While waiting, how about tuning in into another one of these series? The playlist is here, so get ready for some Battlecat creations never seen before. Peace!